Perfect. Time to begin. We are at 8 p.m. sharp, learning about DeFi today. Guys, everyone who can hear me fine, type yes in the chat if my video and audio is okay. Quickly, if you can type yes in the chat. Okay, I hope, yeah, it's perfect. So today, there's one very interesting thing that we are going to learn, building on the things that we studied yesterday. We have Aishhwary Gupta from Polygon. You can see him on our screen. He basically heads growth and strategy at Polygon. He's also good at research when it comes to blockchain, crypto, and DeFi. And that's why we thought he'll be the best one, to make us go through some of the very interesting concepts, like what are DeFi products, their use cases, how are they built, understanding DeFi users and motivation, one of the key aspects that we discussed yesterday as well. What is the role of a product manager in DeFi companies or for DeFi products, and differentiating between Web 2 product managers and Web 3 product managers, and what are the core responsibilities while managing Web 3 products. And if you are the one who looking to transition to Web 3, I think best person we have today on the call. Stick till the end and we'll have a lot of questions. Aishwarya, is my voice okay? Are we good to go?
Yeah.
Perfect. Over to you.
Okay. I'll just share the screen.
Sure.
Just a sec. Let me know if I'm visible and the screen is also visible.
Yeah. You're visible and your voice is also clear. Also, the screen is visible. Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you so much for having me here. And I think when we talk about blockchains, when we talk about DeFi, a lot of people want to transition into Web3, and they're looking how we can actually go ahead and make that transition. And I think GrowthSchool, this program is something which is very good in doing that and helping people actually navigate through all those things. So when we talk about today's session, there are a few things that we're going to learn or we're going to focus more on. So the first one is basically what exactly and why exactly should we be building on DeFi? Like what exactly is DeFi? Why do we need DeFi? I mean, one of the very big reasons or one of the things that everyone should be always focused on is, and this is something which I derived from the theory of why. There's a book which is written, You Should Know Your Why. And which is where you go ahead and understand that whenever you're doing something, if you understand why you're doing it, it makes you actually focus on what exactly is the web product that you're trying to build out, instead of going ahead and taking directions from everyone without even knowing why exactly you're doing that. So that's important. Why do you exactly need something? Second is something we'll talk about some of the problems that are there that are actually being solved through DeFi and how we can actually go ahead and create something which can actually go ahead and help a lot of people around the world. And the last one is, how do you actually go ahead and what is the roadmap to build a Web3 product? And this comes from not something which I've read. This comes from helping a lot of native applications that are being built on Polygon to actually get into real life. So some of the native applications getting into life, helping a lot of teams out there who are building on blockchain. So there are a lot of solutions that have actually helped to get into the market, and that is where this experience comes from. So a little bit about me first. So my name is Aishwary. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm not a finance guy. So that's something which a lot of people have in our mind. Oh, if I'm not a coder, what is there a scope for me, or is there a life for me in this Web3 world? The answer is absolutely. This is one of the biggest things that I'm most proud of. That I am someone who does not come from a tech background. So I am an executive alum of IIM Calcutta. Then my fintech course there. I'm a chartered accountant, and I worked with various Fortune 500s, PwC, American Express. Then I went transitioned into Web3. I started teaching people. So I've taught for almost 2 years now in the Web3 domain, and I'm the first one in India to bring out a course on DeFi from a non-tech perspective. So that's something which is there. Then I worked into ZepPay as someone who was designing some of their products. Then I went into SEBA. I went in research. And then I transitioned into basically something which is Polygon. So Polygon, I've been almost here for 10 months, and major things that I've been here focusing on is helping Polygon DeFi applications to launch on Polygon, helping their go-to-market strategy, and getting into a way in which all these applications can actually take shape. So that is something which I do with Polygon. Along with that, one last thing, just that I'm also building another education platform, which is BattleBrains. Again, that comes into something which is going to be launching next week, and it's a free education platform. So one thing that we are trying to do is we are trying to make simulations there so that you can actually try a lot of applications without putting a single penny of yours. So that's something which is also there. And I've been a consultant to various applications and various products that are actually launching. So currently there are 12 places where I sit as a board of advisor to help them. So that was a small intro about me. So now let's come directly to the point. Now, first things, like why exactly, like I said, you need to understand why. You need to understand why do I actually need to go ahead, and why do I need to actually change something which is there. If you remember 5-6 years back, I'm not sure how many of you have started like banking when these fintech applications came in, and you saw the transition. I mean, most of us have seen the transition from us standing in those bank lines and then actually sitting at home and doing everything through my mobile phone. How many of you have seen that transition? Just give me a yes in the chat. Everyone. Yeah. So now when we've seen already so good things happening, such transition happening, we sitting at home and doing everything. Why exactly do we need something? Why do I go ahead and why do I need to change those things again? Or what exactly is more efficiency that is bringing in, that is being brought in, is something that we want to question. So the current centralized finance system, though it has enhanced a lot, and it helps us to facilitate payments, it helps us to accept deposits, offer credit lines, enable business flows, and caters to our everyday needs, why there is a need to actually go ahead and why there is exactly a need to change that or bring some more efficiencies into it, to be honest. So everything that we're doing today, and if you see, and I'll explain to you in a very simple reason why DeFi is changing the way, and it's helping a lot of things happen today in a very fast manner. So CFI, which is a centralized finance, that is basically being managed by humans and government policies. And because they are being managed by humans and government policies, they are prone to human related risks like corruption, mismanagement. Take the example of anyone who has flown out of India. I'm not taking any names, but you all know how many people have flown out of India, taking crores and crores of rupees. And most of the reason was not because there was a fault in the banking system, but there were the ways in which people actually were able to go out and ensure that mismanagement was done to the prime, and people actually went ahead and took crores and crores of rupees out of India. And that is something where what happens is the government policies are only good if they're managed or if they're put in place exactly as they're meant to, which they are not. And that is why what happens is all these things, all these financial systems or centralized finance system. If you look at today's world, I mean, one of the best point that I can say is we are studying these things when we exactly I can actually go out and prove it to you that this is something which is very much necessary. Today only, there were 5 regional banks in China. There's a news that is coming in, and they have taken $6 billion worth of deposits, and they're not giving it back. They have defaulted, and $6 billion. So $6 billion of money deposited. So it's not that it happens only in crypto. The native traditional banks are also defaulting in China. So that's one thing. Second thing is, if you see a lot of applications that have been built today, most of them are all those centralized finance applications like Celsius are also something which are falling down. And that is not something which is because of the technological failure. That is because the governance policies that have been created and the human mismanagement that has been there with corruption and inefficiencies, that has actually given that shape to all the things that are happening. And that is why we need to go ahead and we need to find a way in which these inefficiencies can actually go ahead and reduce the things that we are facing today. So with that, what exactly are the problems that we see? The first one is the payments and the clearance system. So let's talk about payments and clearance systems today. So while I was working with American Express, I was managing the treasury department. So I was in the treasury department. And one of the things that we used to do, and this is something that a lot of people do not know, is every transaction that you make for a Forex let's say, for example, you bought something at $10 or $12. What happens is you're never given the rate at the point when you're buying the stuff. Your rate will never come in. And when it will come in, so what American Express and what the global standard is, basically you are levied the rate, which is the worst rate of the previous day. Which means if the dollar rate today is 75 rupees, what will be levied to you is not the 75 today. Probably at the yesterday, the worst rate or the highest rate was 78. So you will be charged 78, which means they always make a gain no matter what transaction you do. So that's the first thing. Second thing is there's always a conversion fee which is applied to your card. So there are a lot of charges that you actually go ahead and pay for the efficiency that they give you, which is like you can pay through your card anywhere. So that is something which is a very big problem. And even if you talk about Swift systems which are there today, the Swift is something which I don't know if it became a lot famous when Nirav Modi came in, and Nirav Modi took a lot of money through Swift notes. So Swift is just a messaging platform, and where you basically go ahead and send messages to a lot of people on the internet and to various banks across the world, telling them, okay, you can go ahead and make this payment on our behalf, and we will make good of that. So that is something which a Swift system does. And because it's a messaging platform which is broken in a lot ways, you have to go ahead and understand is that this is something which is broken to a very high extent. And the system is ongoing from the last 40 years. Right? I mean, everything has advanced, why Swift hasn't? So there was a very big need that in these payment and clearing systems that there's a very high cost. They take a lot of time. They're still not efficient. And that is why this particular thing is something which is very ripe for change. The second one is accessibility. Now we talk about when internet came into this world, we talked about everyone going ahead and saying, oh, we want everyone to be equal. We want everyone to trade. We want everyone to do this. And we want equality across the globe. Did that come in? The answer is no. There are still billions of people. I don't know the number anymore. It's 1.5, 2 billion or whatever. The point is these 2 billion people still do not have access to the basic banking systems, which means they are not connected to the financial systems, which means that there's no way they can go ahead and conduct their businesses online, which means that there is no way that they can earn anything on the internet. Now, there are 2 ways to go ahead and solve it. One is start opening bank branches everywhere. That is not something which is viable because they're not profit. They won't be making any profits, and that would be adding cost to the banks. So the banks are not interested. The governments know that there's not going to be a very good part of GDP coming in from there. So they're also not interested anymore. So what happens is these 2 billion people, let's say, are still not connected. However, these 2 billion people still have out of these 2 billion people, almost 70% of them still have a mobile phone, which is connected to the internet. And that's it. That's what we need for DeFi. We need an internet connection and we need a smartphone. That's it. So you do not need to go ahead and open your bank accounts there. And that is where the accessibility problem, which is there, we can go ahead and we can solve that. The third is centralization. And when you talk about centralization, what happens is often there are a lot of scams that you've seen. Talk about Panama Papers, talk about FinCEN leaks. We have all heard of them. How many of you have heard of them? How many of you have heard of FinCEN leaks, Panama Papers, and all these scams that happen every day? Just give me a yes if you've heard about it. Give me a no if you haven't. So, okay, most of you have heard about it. Basically, these are scams that are uncovered by XYZ people, and after uncovering, there's no one who's blamed, and they just go on. They make headlines for a few days, and then everything is settled off. Now, that is something which is a problem, because what happens is there's no one who is put behind bars or who is actually going and taking that charge or onus. Why? Because you cannot prove actually who did this transaction, because you cannot establish from where these transactions were originating. Okay, so ultimately what happens is the banks go ahead and give like $1 billion worth of fines, while they have done $100 billion of revenue, and they're happy with it. They paid 1% as fines, and that's fine. So that's something which happens with centralization. With centralization, there is no way in which you can actually go ahead and find out what is happening behind. And even when you find out what was happening behind and you uncover it, there's no one who is blamed and who is taking the charge. So that is something which still needs to be solved. You need to go ahead and on the blockchain or on the internet, you need to specify the onus that, okay, this person was guilty for doing this particular thing. So that is something which is also happening, which needs a lot, which needs a solution. And the last one is transparency and cost of doing business. Now, when we talk about online businesses today, what happens is there's something called a little bit irrelevant, but something that I need to tell you is in 1992, there was a white paper which was written with the name of God's Protocol. Now, God's Protocol, what does have to do with transparency and cost of doing business? And God's Protocol, there was this guy called Nick Sabzo who wrote this. He said that, hey, do you know that there's a third party that is always required on the internet for you to go ahead and do business? Let's say you want to go ahead and buy something from Swiggy, or let's say you want to go ahead and buy something from an XYZ store. You need Swiggy for that. You need a payment gateway for that to actually process the payments, and then only you can actually go ahead and do that transaction. So Swiggy needs banking, I need banking, I need Swiggy as well. So all these are intermediaries in between, and hence they were called God. Why? Because without this God, Swiggy cannot survive. Why? Because Swiggy will not be able to accept payments, and if Swiggy will not be able to accept payments, how will it do this business? So that is something, that is why he referred to these third parties as gods, because God was enabling these businesses to actually function. And that is something where a lot of intermediaries came in, a lot of middlemen came in. And when they came in, it's okay, they came in, that's fine, but they started charging a lot of money. Talk about Ola, talk about Uber today. They charge 30-35% of the money from every ride that they enable an Uber driver to do. And you cannot do anything about it. So that's something where cost of doing business is going higher, and people who are actually doing the business or who are actually enabling this, they're not getting paid. Only the people who are coming as an intermediary are getting paid for it. So these are some of the problems, major problems that you have to think about when you think about bringing DeFi into this world. Why DeFi was needed? These are your reasons why, or these are the problems that you actually have to go ahead and solve for. So that's something where you have to understand that these are the problems where I need to go ahead and I need to solve it. And hence we have something called DeFi. Now, what exactly is DeFi? So first of all, when you talk about DeFi, DeFi is efficient and transparent. Now, why efficient? Okay, let me give you a very simple example. So you see me sitting at some place. So this is a new flat that I bought last year. Now, while buying this flat, what I did was I took out a loan. Now, I took out a loan from two places. Okay, the first place was my bank, where I've always kept my money, where I've always done the transactions and everything. And second was Aave. Now, Aave is a decentralized platform where you can actually go ahead and lend and borrow money in crypto. Okay, so now let's understand why this is efficient and transparent, and why CeFi, which is my bank. Let's say this is my bank and this is Aave. So when I talk about my bank, it took me 1 month. It took me a hell lot of paperwork. Every second day, my relationship manager calling me and saying, "Sir, you have to upload this document. You have to upload this document." And I was transitioning from one job to another. So they said, unless you go to your new job and you derive your first salary, you will not be able to go ahead and you will not be able to actually take this loan. So it took me almost a month to actually go ahead and take this loan. So time consuming, a lot of paperwork. And one of the worst parts about our central banks or our banking system is the moment rates are hiked, they will automatically reflect it in your statements. The moment rates are reduced, they will never go ahead and do that or reduce your rates and get a say, okay, the rates are reduced, hence you have to pay lesser interest. So that is something which also is a problem. So these are three problems which I had. On the second hand, what I did was I had some Ethereum with me, which I actually sent as a collateral. So what I did was I just logged into Aave, put my Ethereum on the chain. And against that, I borrowed some USDC, which is a stable coin. I transferred them into my centralized exchange, which is properly KYC'd. And from there, I withdrew the money directly into my bank account. So it took me less than 24 hours to do that thing. So first, it is more efficient. Took me a lot less time, no paperwork at all. And you do not need to tell what is your credit score, what is your XYZ things and everything, because it is properly collateralized and everything is happening on chain. So if you want to go ahead and you want to see my loan, you can actually go ahead on the blockchain and you can actually see from where or how much I have taken as a loan. And no, I don't need permission from any third party, or I don't need to go ahead and hide my transactions, or I don't need to go ahead and say that, okay, my transactions are not visible. They're perfectly visible. So it became efficient, it became transparent, it became faster. And it is something where I actually went ahead and did not have to go through all the problems that I'm going through in a centralized bank. And the last thing is the interest rate here are managed, or are created, or are automated in a way that every 24 hours, based on the demand and supply, the interest rate is automatically adjusted, which means I don't have to actually go ahead every time, and I don't have to actually go ahead and ask them, hey, is my rate increasing? Is my rate decreasing? It automatically happens. So it's way more efficient. My bank employs somewhere around 20,000 to 30,000 people here. This application employs less than 50 people. My bank has a total balance sheet deposits of somewhere around $55 billion. This has somewhere deposits of, at that time when I borrowed, somewhere around $30 billion. So now can you imagine the efficiencies that it brought in? Less than 50 people, everything happening in an efficient way. There's no problem at all. And in a bank, 30,000 people, so much high cost, so much, the interest rates are not automated, and a lot more problems. So that is where what happened is I was not able to go ahead, and I was not able to actually get a lot of benefits here, but a huge amount of benefit here. So here what happened is, so it is more efficient, it is more transparent, and it is more accessible. I did not need a bank to go ahead actually and take out a loan. I could have done it online, just that currently the landowners or the flat owners or the builders do not accept USDC. Hence, I had to convert my crypto into fiat to actually make the payment. Had they been accepting that, I wouldn't have even needed a bank to actually pay the money, and I would have already got my paperwork. So that is something which is there. That is how it is making things accessible, how quickly you can access them, and it's decentralized. So here what happens is, it's a Saturday, it's a Sunday, everything can be closed and all those stuff. Here it works 24/7. So you don't have to worry about, oh my God, it's Saturday, they won't process my loan. Oh, it's Sunday, they are on a holiday. Oh, it's a public holiday. Nothing like that. It works 24/7. Here, I don't know how much time it works. So that is where what happens is, you actually go ahead and you actually, they see that efficiencies are being brought in. I know there are a lot of questions like, there's a risk in cryptocurrencies and everything. Yeah, we will talk about that, but that is not something I am talking about. The technology. Think about something which is beyond the price movement. If you start talking about price movement, you will not be able to talk or appreciate the technology that is right now being built. So we'll not talk about how prices are fluctuating 40%, 30%, 20%, because yeah, I can start doing that. But what will happen is the classes will end and I won't be able to talk anything else. So that's something which is there. So you have to understand that I'm not saying that this is way more efficient or this is perfect. I'm saying that as compared to this, it's way more efficient, and it's way more transparent, and it's way more accessible. So there are a lot of things that you have to understand in that sense as well. Now, once we understand this is something what DeFi brings in, so let's understand what exactly is DeFi. So what I've told you what DeFi does, but what exactly is a DeFi? So DeFi is basically a movement that allows you to go ahead and enable those financial services to go ahead and function without that God protocol that I was talking, that there was intermediaries in between. There's no intermediary anymore here in between. So that is something which is there. And these financial services is something which we call as DApps, which is something called as a decentralized application, as compared to all the applications that currently we install in our mobile phones, which are centralized. So that is something which is there, and it is an application that is deployed as a smart contract. Okay, what is a smart contract? I'll just talk after this thing. But just if I just move that price movement here, can you see the efficiency that I just talked about from Aave? If you can, just put in a yes. I know, just put aside the risks and the price movements, but can you see that efficiency being built from this place, which is a bank, to a decentralized application, which is Aave? If yes, then put in a yes. That's it. Yeah, it's almost instant. Correct. So that is something which is there, and that is something which you have to focus on, because yeah, I know there is a lot of risk around, there's a lot of things around, and we probably would have talked about it had I had that much time here. But definitely that is something where I want to explain to you what the technology is bringing in. So that's something which is there. And now when we talk about smart contracts, because that is something, that one jargon that I threw here is a smart contract. So now what exactly is a smart contract? Now, one single question again. Tell me something. How many of you have actually gone ahead and used a vending machine? A vending machine on anyone who does not know what a vending machine is? Yeah, chips. You get those chips at the airport and everywhere, every places. Yeah. Airport malls. Yeah. I mean, just have got like 5 replies. We have more than 100 folks here. Guys, how many of you have actually used a vending machine, or you know what a vending machine is? If you don't know it, just let me know that you don't know what is this. Big basket. Yeah, exactly. So that is something where what happens is when you talk about a vending machine, that is exactly a smart contract. If I tell you, that's the first smart contract ever built. Now, how does what exactly is a smart contract? A smart contract is nothing but an if-else statement. Now, let's talk about it in the vending machine. So what happens is, let's say you stand in front of a vending machine, you want to go ahead and buy a bottle of Coke. Now, what you do is you go ahead, you scan the machine, you see, oh, there's a Coke. You go ahead and click on Coke. The moment you go ahead and click on Coke, what it says is there's an if-else statement. The if-else statement starts and says, do we have Coke in the machine or not? If there is no, so it will say, sorry, we don't have Coke. If it is yes, it will say, how much quantity do you want? Let's say you go ahead and enter 5. Now, the moment you go ahead and enter 5, it will again go ahead and check, okay, are there 5 Cokes there that they can disperse or not? If there's no, then again, it will go ahead and say, hey, we do not have 5. We probably have 4, 3, or 2, whatever, if you want to proceed. And otherwise, if you have 5, they will again say yes, and you move to the next step. Next step is how much you have to pay. So it says enter this much amount. The moment you go ahead and enter that amount, it will again check, is that amount greater than or equal to that exact amount that was there, that was asked? If no, then it will say, hey, you haven't entered the complete amount, you have to enter more. So that is something which happens. And if you have entered the correct amount, what will happen is it will take the amount, give you the cans. If there's an extra money, it will refund you back. That is what is smart contract. If else, that's it. Now, if I go ahead and explain what a smart contract is in a financial term, let's say I want to go ahead and pay Om $12,000. But I don't want to go ahead and give Om $12,000 right away. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to give Om those $12,000 in 12 months, which means I have to give Om $1,000 every month. And the time is basically as soon as a new month starts. So it will be 12 o'clock at night. The moment it goes ahead and the moment the clock strikes 12, what happens is, so there are two. So let's talk about the 2 ways in which we can actually execute it. The first one is the way in which we actually do it today. The way in which we actually do it today is we'll go to a bank, we'll give it some of the standing instructions, say, hey, I have to go ahead and pay Om. So bank will take all the details and everything out there. And then second is, if this amount is higher, probably what I'll do is I'll hire a lawyer or someone who can, or an escrow account where I can park the funds, and the lawyer ensures that everything is happening on time. If something is not happening, the lawyer ensures that I do not get into any liabilities and everything. So that is something which my lawyer does. My question again, with all these 3 people, there's a lot of cost involved, but am I 100% sure that my amount will go to Om on every first of every month for the next 12 months? Will it go or will it not go? So what I said, I'll just repeat. So what I'm saying is, if I want to go ahead, if I want to go ahead and pay Om $12,000, I gave my bank instructions, I hired a lawyer, I hired an escrow account, so to ensure that everything happens on time. But are you 100% sure that the payments will happen on time? Yeah, still, that's the point. Even with something, with what happens is the man goes under maintenance. How many of you have seen that? At night, I am feeling hungry, I want to order my food, and the man is saying, sorry, we are under maintenance and we cannot go ahead and we cannot let you order food because our maintenance will be down at 4 a.m. in the morning. So you have to wait till 4 a.m. Otherwise, go and do it from some other means. So that's the problem. We have that money. Yeah. So we have that money. We have everything in a bank, but we still can't order. So that is something which is there. So that's the problem, right? The first one where we are actually going ahead and we are doing everything. We are spending so much cost and everything. And there's no way I can 100% assure you that, okay, my payment is actually going to go through. Here, on the other hand, what I can do is I can deploy a smart contract, and that smart contract on the blockchain. And what I can do is I can write the address of Om. Om does not have to KYC. I don't have to tell my smart contract why I'm paying Om. It's my wish. Smart contract does not give a damn about what exactly it has to do with that money. So that's something which is there. And then second thing, and the third thing is when it is on a blockchain like Ethereum, Polygon, and all these things, what happens is the transaction will happen because the blockchain uptime is 99.999%. Why I'm saying it's 0.999%? Because some blockchains which are right now in beta and which are in testing phases and everything, they tend to stop. So that's why 99.999%. So that is something which we have to understand. So what happened here is I just deployed a smart contract which fed the conditions that this is the time in which I have to pay this address which belongs to Om, and that's it. Automatically, as soon as the clock strikes 12 of a new month, the payment will automatically flow. I don't even have to look back and check whether the payment is happening or not. So this is something where what happened is I was able to bring in efficiency through a smart contract, reduce the cost of doing business or my mental pressure, which was every month I'm just opening my bank account to see, oh, but did the transaction happen or it is not. So it's just something. So what is a smart contract? A smart contract is these four things. It requires at least 2 users. So me and Om the requirement that gets fulfilled that there is a minimum 2 users. It could be 1 million users. Does not matter. It could be doing transactions with anyone. Does not matter. So that is something which is there. The second is they are stored on a blockchain. Now, I think by the time I'm telling you, you understand what a blockchain is already. So you already know what the features of a blockchain are. Then all the terms are written on a code. So which is the if-else statement that I was telling you, and auto executes everything when the conditions are triggered. So as soon as the condition got triggered, that is 12 a.m. of the fresh month, it automatically triggers that amount. That's it. That's what a smart contract does. So through these smart contracts, all this automation is happening where dependency on human code and everything is happening. Now comes, so once we have done that, so let's talk about examples. So when you talk about, let's say, a new industry coming in or a new venture getting into the place, what is the first thing? Like, what exactly is the first thing that you need? So when economies were set, when countries were made, so what was the first thing that you need? You need something through which you can actually go ahead and you can actually buy stuff, or you can take something in exchange. So you want money, okay? So you need money to actually go out and run a new economy. So that's something when you talk about DeFi, this money is something which is stored in stable coins. And one of the biggest use cases of a stable coin in DeFi is DAI. Okay, you can go ahead and later on like Google it out and all the researches and probably see what these things or how they operate. But yeah, so you need money. So let's say I have money. Now, when I have money, there are 2 things. So either I have excess money, which means I have a lot of money, I don't know what to do. Or basically, let's say I'm going to go out and start a venture and I need more money. So there is one person who has excessive money, does not know what to do. There's another person who needs more money and does not have the money. So once you have the money, what you will do is you'll go ahead. If you have excess money, you'll deposit it. And if you have less, if you need money, you'll borrow it. So that's the second thing that happens. So once you have money, the second thing is lending and borrowing, which you can go ahead and do it on Aave. The third thing is, let's say I want to go ahead and I want to have multiple cryptocurrencies with me. So today what happens is with those centralized exchanges that you have, how many of you have actually done a transaction on a cryptocurrency exchange, and when you actually wanted to do a transaction, it did not pass through because there was too much congestion and the exchange broke down? Anyone who has faced that? Me, yes. Yeah, so many of you have actually faced that. Now, what if I tell you that there are ways, there are exchanges which are decentralized and do not fail? So last year, when the crypto market was crashing, I was sitting behind my desk working for Zeppe and was moving millions and millions of dollars at that time. through decentralized exchanges. And Uniswap, I was doing the transactions there, and Uniswap on that particular day processed somewhere around $6 billion. And not a single transaction failed. Nothing happened. The platform did not crash. Everything was happening the way it had to happen. Just one problem. Yeah, the gas fees increased because there were a lot of transactions happening. That's it. So the point is, I was able to go ahead and I was able to do all the transactions that were needed or that I wanted to do. Just that I had to pay higher gas fees, but my transactions did not fail. So that's another thing. Now, once you have various cryptocurrency, let's say what you want to do is you want to ensure that you are not very much exposed. So you want to do risk analysis, or you want to ensure your risks are down. So you get into derivatives where you actually go ahead and hedge your risks. So that is where you can take the example of D by DX. Then let's say once I've hedged my risks and everything, I want to do something else. I want to focus on something which I want to do. It's not that I want to go ahead and trade 24/7 on cryptocurrencies. So what I can do is I can go ahead and I can have passive income, which is fund management. So there's another example, which is token sets. Now, because all these platforms are coming in and they're very new, they're prone to a lot of hacks and everything, which happens on a daily basis today, you need to have insurances. So that's where you can actually go ahead. I've not changed the name. So that's where Nexus Mutual is something which is a platform where you can go ahead and actually take care of your insurances. So what happens is, like, these things are limited to what? These things are limited to your imagination. Think about anything which is there in a centralized platform and is something where you feel, oh, this is something which can be built on a decentralized platform. Probably, or 100% it could be. So that is something, that is how vast or that is how broad DeFi is today. And that is how much it is bringing the efficiencies today. So that is something where we have the examples of DeFi. Now, once you go ahead and once you have something called all these applications you see, so you can actually go ahead and Google all these. You can see all those things there. And that's something which is there. Now, when we talk about product managers, when we talk about building products for masses, so there are three things that you have to consider, and there are three things that you have to take care of while you are building those things. And what are these three things? The first is ideation and research. The second is ownership and roadmap. The third is team, pipeline, and MVP. Now, when we talk about ideation and research, so let's say when you want to go ahead and when you say, I want to build a product which actually goes ahead and which actually is required for the market, what you have to understand is that it is not a very easy task. I'll give you an example to make you understand why this is not an easy task. So very quickly, there's something called Uniswap that came into existence. And today, if you see your exchanges, like any of those exchanges which are there, where you actually go ahead and where you actually trade, like NSE, BSE, and all those places, what happens is they all work in something which is called as order books, which means someone is punching an order, let's say at XYZ rate and XYZ quantity. Someone else is also, so someone is putting a sell order, someone is putting a buy order. If the quantities and the prices match, the sale and purchase happens. Now, when Uniswap came into the existence, not many people were actually doing exchanges. Not many people. So you would put in a purchase order, and for hours and hours and hours, nobody would come and buy. So your order is just lying there. So that was a problem there. Now, they went ahead and they discovered something called AMM, which is automated market maker. I'll not talk about it because it will take a lot of time, but they discovered something which is AMM, automated market makers. They created liquidity pools and everything, a lot of jargons. So I'm just giving you an example to say that how this is something which is very important. So they went ahead and they created all those AMMs, liquidity pools, to actually go out and innovate something in a way that today, even if there is any purchase order and there is no one who is selling, you can actually go ahead and make the trade. So that is an innovation that came into the picture. So let's talk about all these things. The first thing was ideation and research. Now, when you talk about ideation and research, the first thing that you have to focus on is, what do you actually want to solve? And while this might seem to be a very easy question, believe me, this is the most difficult question. Because the moment you actually deep dive into it, you will say, oh, this is also need to be solved. This also needs to be solved. This also needs to be solved. This also needs to be solved. And you're like, what do I solve? So it looks like a very simple thing for you, but this is the most difficult thing. Believe me, I've been through this, and it is the most time consuming part. Well, how to decide, or what do you decide that what exactly is the problem that you want to solve? Because there's so many problems that you want to actually go ahead and solve. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that really a problem? So again, one very, very, very useless question again, I would say. How many of you during a day, like from the time you wake up till the time you go to sleep, you feel, okay, this is something which is an innovative idea. And the second day you're like, dude, how useless that idea was. But I don't know why I was thinking that that could be working, that could work, and that was a very good idea. How many of you feel that? I feel that on a daily basis. Yeah, so a lot of you, most of the times, right? So that is something which is there. Is this actually a problem? Is this basically something that that actually needs solved, or because you're too lazy? So let's say if my business idea is I want to go ahead and do something with my brush, a toothbrush, that it automatically goes ahead and brushes me with the moment I wake up. So that's you being lazy. That's not a problem at all. So that is something which is like, is that problem which is basically required to be solved, which was like, when you talk about Uniswap, the problem was there were not enough orders to actually go ahead and complete the buy and sell. So here what is happening is there really a problem? And then when you're doing that, you have to go ahead and you have to research about it. You have to see how many people are actually facing it. You can see that through talking to other people, asking them, hey, is this a problem, or is this something that actually you also feel, or is that just me, the lazy me, which is feeling that particular thing? And once you are actually able to see that, okay, this is a real problem that exists, then your next question should be, is that something where what you are trying to build does not exist in the market? If it does, what exactly is your USP, or what exactly are you solving? So let's say someone has already created Uniswap, which is a decentralized exchange. So let's say what you do is you wake up in the morning and you say, let's have Uniswap is making millions and millions of dollars every day or every month. I should also do something. So what you do is you just take those contracts from Uniswap, you just fork them, and you just copy paste and say, oh, this is my new exchange, which is known as, let's say, Ohm Exchange. So if this Ohm Exchange, how will it become successful? Does it have something which is that's a USP, which is going to bring that, or which is going to give you that? Or is it something which is just a copy paste? Because the moment it is a copy paste, no one is going to actually go ahead and use it. So that is again another thing that you have to do. So yeah, I think I have already written that example itself, a DEX or a SEX AMA. Now, once you have done your research that, okay, this is something which is a USP, this is something which is a problem which a lot of people still need to be solving it. The next thing that you do is you decide how to take the ownership of it and what is the roadmap. Now, when you talk about ownership and roadmap, what happens is the first thing you have to require as a product manager. What you have to do is you have to understand what is the requirement to build something for which I have found out the problems. The moment I'm actually able to go out and I'm actually able to find out what the problem is, then only I will be able to actually go ahead and assign those responsibilities. Often this happens, like this is a Web3 problem, probably would not exist in Web2. A single person feels that he can do everything. He would be doing the marketing, he would be doing the business development, he would be gathering everything, he would be building the product also, he would be doing the marketing. So that is something which is going to be a very big problem for you. Why? Because you don't, no matter how efficient you are, you cannot manage everything. So you have to go ahead and you have to assign responsibilities to other people who actually can take care of it, so that you have to focus on getting that thing built. And while you're doing it, what happens is, again, what happens is when you're solving a particular problem, what happens in your mind is, okay, I think this can also be added. I think that can also be added. I think this thing, if it is there, what will happen is it will give me more efficiencies. So what happens at that point is there are a lot of things that comes to your mind. And when those things are coming to your mind, you have to put them in a roadmap. If you do not put them in a roadmap, what will happen is your version or your version 1 or your final product or your MVP will never launch, because the moment you're nearing your closure of your MVP, you have another idea which you want to build in, and that way you will keep on adding more and more ideas. So you have to know that there's a roadmap that has to be created, and you have to start small. It does not matter that, for example, that if you're going ahead and starting something, you have to do everything at the same point when you're starting. Slowly and steadily, what you can do is through your roadmap, you can actually go ahead and you can create that. Then the last thing is when you talk about team, pipelines, and MVP. And when you talk about teams, pipeline, and MVP is basically where first thing is your stakeholders are important. Now, when you're talking about building a team and you're talking about, so I'll take an example. Let's say, for example, when I'm working with Polygon. So we talk about, let's say we want to build this particular solution. The moment we want to go ahead and say, okay, we want to build this particular solution, we have to go ahead and find out the first thing that we do is, which is like, I'll go back, what I'll do is, we'll see what are the requirements. Then what we will see is who is efficient enough, who has the time and bandwidth to actually take that ownership, which is important. Once that ownership is created, then we'll say, okay, this is something that we want as a final product, but let's start from this place and slowly and steadily, let's reach at the final destination. And that's where we go ahead and that's where we go ahead and start that. Now, once that product is started to build, what we have to do is we have to start creating pipelines. Now, what exactly is a pipeline? When you talk about pipelines, pipeline is something where basically you have to go ahead and you have to devise a way in which, let's say, you want to develop your business, you want to go ahead and have various partnerships. So that's one pipeline. How do you actually get into those partnerships, or how do people approach you, or what are the things through which you can develop your business? So that is a pipeline that you created, a pipeline which brings in more and more business development for you. So that's something where you go ahead and create that. And then what we do is we focus on creating the MVP. Once the MVP is created, you go ahead, you launch that as a soft launch. You take the feedbacks from a lot of people, say, tell me what is the problem. You go through it. You hire alpha testers and everyone. And that's where basically you understand what exactly are the things that you thought in your mind are important versus what are the things that actually matter. So this is something where you actually make that and you actually take those suggestions and you finally feel that, yeah, now the product is ready. And this is where basically as a product manager, your role comes to a standstill where it's completed, where you actually go ahead and ship that particular product. So basically from a PM in 2.0 to 3.0, what happens is there are 4 things that you have to understand very, very much. The first is you have to have a deep and a core thought process or a knowledge base about how Web3 works. Because let's say last week I was talking to this government employee and they wanted to go ahead and they wanted to solve a particular problem. I understand that this is the problem that they want to solve. I asked them, do you know how to solve it? The answer is no. Now, the moment if you do not know how to actually solve that particular problem, what happens is even if you know the problems, even if you understand what the problem is, you won't be able to put the Web3 phase of it to actually ship it in a Web3 manner. So that is something which is one of the biggest requirements when you want to convert, when you want to move from a Web 2.0 to a Web 3.0 product manager, that you have to understand what the flaws are in Web 2 and how those flaws can be solved in the Web 3. Then you assemble the resources like your Web 2, so that does not change. Creating an MVP does not change. So just one thing that is basically changing for you is the knowledge of Web 3. That's it. You do not have to become like, there's a different course for becoming a product manager, which is going to make you a Web 3 product manager. Just the understanding of the technology is something that's going to make you a Web 3 product manager. So with that, I think I conclude the presentation. And if you guys want to learn more, there are various sources that you can actually go ahead and try. Masari is one source. It is something where I read every week. Delphi Digital is also another one I forgot to mention here. Nansen is there. So these are some of like a pro places where you can actually go ahead and learn. For someone who is just starting up, you can use CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, DeFi Pulse, BattleBrains, which is I think shipping next week. So that is something where actually you can go ahead and you can learn those things. So I think that's where I conclude. Okay. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you so much, Aishwarya. That was a bullet train ride into understanding what's DeFi, smart contracts, and how to transition. Guys, put in your questions. There's a link that I've sent. Quickly, if you can fill in the questions, we'll take some questions that we have. Aishwarya, let me curate a few questions for you, which will be helpful for us to understand what are the kinds of things that we have. So one question we have from Satyarth Prakash is, if DeFi is the future, why are those Bitcoin, why are those $1 billion financial institutions not getting into it? And I mean, the board of directors are not basically dumb that much. I mean,
it's basically losing control. So when you talk about DeFi, you are actually losing control. So today, if I talk about, I cannot name a lot of companies that I talk to, a lot of governments that I talk to. Basically, the biggest fear that I sense is they do not want to go ahead and give away that ownership that is there. You know, that God protocol thought process, we are gods. We don't want to go ahead and give that away. The moment we give that away, what happens is we do not exist anymore. So that is one of the biggest reasons why DeFi as a whole, like, it is requiring a lot more efforts than it should actually take.
Hmm. Got it. And when we talk about borrowing money in DeFi products or from DeFi apps, what exactly do you provide as a collateral for borrowing money from DeFi?
So currently, like as we started, we again provide cryptocurrencies itself. So the loan that I had taken was basically where I put Ethereum as a collateral to borrow USDC. So that is there. But now real time, basically lending and borrowing has started. There's an application called Teller, TELLER, which recently launched, I think 3-4 months back, where you can actually go ahead and put real time assets as collaterals. So when you look at this, and this is one of the biggest opportunities in Web3, where you can actually tokenize your Web2 assets onto the blockchain to make them collaterals on a Web3 platform to actually draw out loan. So that's something which is a massive, massive opportunity out there.
Got it. And now basically we'll come to some questions on smart contracts. Uh, what are the vulnerabilities of smart contracts at this point, and how are they evolving? And talk a bit about it.
Got it. So basically what happens is smart contracts. So when you go ahead and use Java today, what happens is there are standard libraries which have been thoroughly audited, which you just plug and play and you just deploy. With Web3, what is happening is a lot of this library does not exist. We are making that. We, as in like the Web3 folks who are actually into coding, they're actually making it. And there's no standard. Why? Because they're just being made. So which makes them a lot more vulnerable today. So that is one of the biggest challenges, because there's no standardization in Web3 right now, because it's still evolving. You cannot standardize it. So that becomes one of the biggest vulnerabilities, where maybe you are trying something new and though you have audited yourself, you have given all those things, but so if you see every time a new hack happens, it's not that it's exactly the same which happened the last time. What will happen is there's another way in which someone has done something different through which they have actually gone ahead and hacked it. So that's one of the biggest vulnerabilities, that there's no standardization. And because of that, there are a lot of ways in which your smart contracts could be hacked. And because let's say you have deployed a smart contract on a blockchain, you actually cannot go ahead and modify it until unless you have created a smart contract with a call option where you can actually set new parameters. So that's something which happens. So this is something which is like the biggest challenge today.
Okay, got it. And also definitely it comes with a lot of opportunities to, fulfill.
Absolutely.
And one question which has come across from everyone is, for example, you gave an example of $12,000 splitting across 1,000 a month. What happens if my account does not have that balance? What happens in that case, or the account gets blocked before itself?
So firstly, account cannot get blocked, because when you're doing any transaction on a blockchain, nobody is censoring you.
No,
If I have sent,
sorry, the amount in my account gets blocked to send me 1,000 every month.
so how, like for example, I have $12,000. So
Yeah.
I know that every first that there's $1,000 payment. So there are two ways. First is I put in $12,000 and forget about it. The second is basically what happens is, before first what I do is I ship $1,000 into the contract, and automatically if I do that, then the transaction will happen. If I do not fund, that's something which on both the sides will fail, because you've not put in the money. That is not a tech failure, it's your failure.
Okay, got it. Okay, makes sense. Because I think this is one question that keeps on coming. Smart contract again is a digital virtual contract that we have put, but the money is something that we have to fund, or we have to keep it in that account. And it again relates to the same traditional contract, that we have some verbal contract or a documentation also. But if I am not funding that money from my account to your account, how is smart contract securing that problem to happen?
That's basic finance. If I don't put my money, nothing can happen.
Got it. Okay. Okay, let me find out. There are some Web3 questions. We want to build a product for solving problems, but are unable to think and design Web3 part of it. Any advice on that part?
Start reading. I think the best way to actually go ahead and find how you have to solve it is you have to start reading. Like even today, I still every weekend I sit for 2 hours, 3 hours minimum to go ahead and upgrade myself, and that is something which there's no alternative to it. You do not have a rule book where it says these are the problems that you have to solve, and you just pick that up and you solve it. And that's why I think on the screen these are the resources where you can actually go ahead and you can actually start learning about them a lot. And this is like most of these, the basics are almost like everything is free on that. So you don't have to actually go ahead and say, hey, I don't want to pay or something like that. So you don't have to, but I think the only way for you to actually be able to think about it is when you go deep into it, when you understand. So let's say when you talk about Bitcoin and you do not know anything about finance, Bitcoin might feel like, oh, it's just like a Ponzi, who cares? But when you understand how 2008 brought down a lot of people who lost a lot of money, and it was a lot of issues with the financial policies and everything, you will slowly and steadily realize that this is something where you actually are able to go ahead and appreciate why an asset like that was actually created and why it makes sense today.
Got it. Makes sense. And coming back, one more addition, just building on top of the collateral part of it. For example, if I am putting my Luna on stakes to get Bitcoin, and for example, the value of Luna or Bitcoin falls off to a very bad level, or let's say becomes zero, what happens in that case?
So there's a liquidation that happens. So basically, when you talk about all these things, the code ensures that all these things happen. So let's say if you again are active on crypto Twitter, you would have seen Celsius example. A lot of people saying the Celsius will be liquidated at 21,000, 19,000, or 12,000, whatever. The point is that there is an automatic setup built in, which means that let's say if I talk about Aave, and if I've put in so it is always over collateralized. Let's say if I put in Ethereum, I wanted to draw a loan of 10,000. I've put in Ethereum was, let's say, 15,000, which is 150%. Now, if the prices are falling, the moment the prices of Ethereum are such that my loan is 10,000 and the prices of Ethereum now are up to a total value of 11,000. That makes my health ratio go bad. And automatically what will happen is it will trigger a point where automatically my Ethereum will be sold off without me knowing it, and automatically converting it into the stable coin in which I've taken the loan to repay it back. And that is something how these platforms ensure that there's no bad debt.
Got it. I think this makes things very clear, because a lot of things after the Luna crash that happened, and this is daily someone comes up and asks, oh, what happens like this? I think we have a very clear answer to that. Can I, as a user, take loan from DeFi or Web3 and use it in Web2, or how do I do that if I want to?
I mean, currently, if you want to do it, you basically need collateral. So you will have to buy some collaterals to go out and give them. There are a lot of protocols which right now are working on under collateralized lending, where you probably can lend in a little bit lesser and you can withdraw more, but they're not still existing like on a grand level. So currently, the only way if you want to use DeFi is basically you have to put in collateral with cryptocurrencies that you have, which these platforms accept, and then you draw out a loan. Slowly and steadily as we transition, because we're still very early on that point, and like I told you, Teller is one application which has started giving out more options. So slowly and steadily what will happen is the moment more tokenization of real world asset happens, then you would be able to put on chain your collateral. Let's say I can put on chain this flat as collateral to draw out a loan from somewhere else. So that is something which is not there, but it is going to slowly and steadily build up.
Got it. Okay. And there's one question that has come up, which is not related to today's topic, but it's on staking. How staking works? How do we get interest when we stake crypto? And is it similar to the traditional mutual funds? And what is the power of staking, let's say, and also a liquidity pool that it forms?
Okay. So when you talk about staking, there's something called, I think you would have already studied about proof of stake.
Yeah.
So proof of stake is something where basically what you do is you try to go ahead and the reason why I want to stake my cryptocurrencies is to ensure that the security of that platform is enhanced. The more I've staked, the more secure that particular blockchain is. Now, in order to go ahead and in order to say and tell people, okay, why should I go ahead and put my tokens as a stake? I can basically use that to, let's say, go ahead and farm somewhere and get more returns. So why should I actually do it? Is because of this particular reason, protocols ensure that they give a return while you're staking. So that's where, like, for example, if you talk about Polygon, it gives you somewhere around 8.7%. That's something which is not changing. So 8.3 to 8.7% is an annual return. If you stake your Matic tokens, you'll get as a return in Matic. So this is something where basically what happens is this is how the staking works. So staking is required to ensure that your network security is maintained. And this is the cost that the protocol pays to you for maintaining this security on their behalf. So that is what staking is. And then when you talk about staking, like more as in liquidity pool, so liquidity pool is completely different than staking. Staking is where you have locked your asset into that protocol and said, okay, my tokens are something which is staked there. There are new ways that are coming in, which is something called as liquid staking, where you can actually go ahead. I don't know if a lot of you have heard about ETH and ST, ETH, DPEG, which happened on crypto Twitter. A lot of thoughts and talks were happening. So this is where what happens is there is a synthetic version of the token that you've staked on the platform, which is given out to you, which you can use in other protocols to lend, borrow, and do other stuff on the DeFi. So thereby, like, not completely locking your capital, but still locking the tokens to ensure that the security is still maintained. So that is something which is there. Liquidity pool, on the other hand, is completely different. Liquidity pool is basically where you talk about decentralized exchanges. So what happens is, in order to ensure that those orders were getting filled up. So let's take an example. Let's say you what happens in a liquidity pool, and I'm talking about a double-sided liquidity pool. There are single-sided as well. So what I do is, let's say in a stock market, let's say I have what I today do is, if I want to buy 10 Reliance share, I'll just put in an order of 10 Reliance purchase. And if someone is selling 10 Reliance share, the transaction will complete. This is something which is an order book based transaction. Now, instead of this, what I do is, let's say I know probably not a lot of people might sell that. What I do is I go ahead and I create another way. This another way is where I say, let's say you have 10 Reliance share and you don't want to sell it. You don't want to sell it, but you want to still earn something out of those Reliance shares. Okay. What you do is you create a liquidity pool. And a liquidity pool, let's say you have 10 Reliance ka share. So, and each Reliance share costs you 1,000 rupees. So 1,000 rupees into 10 Reliance share and an equivalent amount of INR, which is 10,000 rupees. So 10 Reliance share and 10 INR, that is the liquidity pool that you created. Now, and you deploy it on the blockchain. Now, let's say what happens is, once this is deployed, let's say someone is coming in and wants to go ahead and buy Reliance share. So, and there's no one selling. So what happens in this liquidity pool is, while I'm buying this off, so what happens is, let's say this other person wants to buy 5 Reliance shares at 1,000 itself. So what happens is, from this pool, 5 Reliance shares are picked up and given to him, and the 5,000 rupees come to the pool. So that is something where what happened is, now you have 5 Reliance shares and 15,000 rupees. Now there will be fluctuations, which means, let's say the Reliance share goes up to 2,000 rupees. So at this time, if you want to withdraw your liquidity, what happens is you have a loss, because basically someone has bought 5 Reliance share at 1,000 rupees. You don't have them anymore. So that's something which, when the price fluctuates, either ways. So either ways, you will suffer, and this is something which is called as impermanent loss. So you suffer an impermanent loss, but why you still want to do it is, while you are doing this while you are providing liquidity, there's a liquid fee when someone transacts. So when this third party was coming in and buying this off, there was a fee that they pay, and this fee is something that you accrue. So in a way, what happens is, if your fee that you're accruing is greater than the impermanent loss, you should go ahead and you provide liquidity in a liquidity.
Okay. This actually explains a lot simpler, and I think it's very helpful. I think one last question, we'll end the discussion with one last question. Before that, guys, please fill in the feedback for today's session, and so we know how it's going and if you're learning something. Aishwarya, last question is, what is the secret sauce to get into Polygon and for initial roles, and maybe some roadmap that you can give it to them?
I think one of the biggest ways in which, like, if you want to get into Polygon is, what is the problem? So I'll just give you an example of someone I met. Like, so we have a lot of meetups and everything. So 6 months back, there was this kid, I would say, because he was just in his class 12th. Okay. So he was working on something that I had no idea about. He was working on something called zero knowledge proof. And he came up to me and he was like, oh, this is something I'm building and I'm very passionate about it. I'm doing an internship and everything out there. And what I did was, I just connected him within the team. So he said, I wanted to see if I can go ahead and see more into the ZK place. So I just connected internally with the team. And at that time, okay, he did not, like, we had an interaction, but we did not have like that kind of a thing where we felt, okay, this is something that we want to hire or something. But 2 months down the line, he went out, and because he was so passionate about it, he built out something which was exactly something which was required by the zero knowledge team. And that's a 12th class kid. I'm not talking about someone with a lot of experience. And he comes back and he says, hey, Aishhwary, I've built this. I just want you to show this to the team. And we again went ahead. And 3 days back, I just saw his Twitter and he was like, I've been hired as someone in the team to go ahead and do that. So the point that I wanted to say here is age is not something which someone sees when you're coming to Polygon. It is basically how much you want to actually go ahead and what is the vision that you see, what exactly is something which you can solve. So what and how much knowledge you have for that. So coming into Polygon is more about how you can actually go ahead and how much knowledge base you have. It does not actually depend on what is the experience. You do not need at all maybe some experience in Web3, but you actually need a deep understanding of how things are. And then there are various roles and everything that start to happen that keep on coming. I think there are more than 100 roles right now on the Polygon website itself, if someone wants to go ahead and have a look. Now, if you want to go ahead and if you feel that you are up for it, you have done something related to that, maybe not in Web3, Web2, you can basically apply there. You can reach out to me on Twitter. My ID is given out at the end of the slide, and probably I'll just see through how we can go ahead and get you hired.
Got it. I guess that was it. Thank you so much, Aishwarya, for doing the session. Guys, drop a boom if you understood, if you enjoyed a lot of session. Get the knowledge drive in, sleep on it, and see how it can work for you. Right. Thank you so much, Aishwarya. Any last words before we part and we close the call?
I think DeFi has a lot of opportunities right now, and if you're probably trying to transition, there's just one advice that I'll give you. That advice is just think about how you can contribute instead of thinking about how much you can earn. Because a lot of people are coming into Web3 with the notion that they will earn a lot. Answer is that the moment things turn ugly, you will be laid off because you are good enough for something, but not which is Web3. So you are coming in with a lot of, when you are coming in, don't think that you are coming in for earning money at the start. I mean, when I started in 2019, nobody believed that Web3 is going to happen. And my office mates and everyone used to make a joke out of me and everything. But the point is that I had faith in it, and that is something which I would also ask everyone. Don't run about the money. See what your passion is, because basically right now this industry is so small that no matter what your passion is, there is a role for you. So you don't have to compromise on, oh, that's a 9 to 5 job, which I do not like because that's not something I want to do, but it pays. It's basically here what you can actually go ahead and build. There are a lot of people I know with a lot of experience contributing in a DAO for free at all. They're not even asking for a single penny, because they know that the moment they learn something, and there are a very limited people with that kind of a knowledge, they would be taken up for grabs like any. So just focus on your knowledge which is there, which will make you get into it, and try to build a proof of work for yourself, which is like, this is something I can do, this is something that I've done, and something like that. So yeah, he was a 12th class student.
Got it. Once again, thank you so much, Aishwarya, for sharing
Thank
your
you.
thoughts, guidance, and experiences. I hope we have a lot of folks building in Web3 and transitioning to Web3. And thank you so much all for joining as well this evening. It's time for moving to Discord Hangouts after we end the call. So a final bye from GrowthSchool and Aishwarya. We'll see you down in Discord. We hope you enjoy the session. We'll meet you again.